Summer Bridge program is a transitional program for our incoming freshmen. One of the goals in our academic action plan is freshman success. And what we know to be true is that the freshman year is very pivotal in the school career of a child. We all remember our first year. First day as a freshman, your nerves are a wreck, you're anxious, you don't know where to go, you're worried about how you fit in. So allowing them the chance to come in, meet their other peers, and get an understanding of what's expected of them. They can walk the building, they understand the rules and regulations of school, and just be comfortable before they come into school.
I love how outgoing the teachers are with helping me, even though I didn't ask for it, but they just came over and, helped me when I looked like I was struggling.
I mean, I find it beneficial that you get to meet the staff, see who you gonna walk into every day. You get to see the classrooms, see the building, so you're not just walking in here blinded. And you get to have a little bit of fun before the school year starts. And I think that's beneficial.
One of the things that the students will do is they will take a field trip and ride the RTA bus, because this may be their first experience doing that. And we really understand how difficult it is for students just to get to school. So once they get to school and they've gone through that, we need to make sure that the environment is set for them to learn, for them to be excited and motivated to learn. So we want to make sure that we have supports in place for students. Students understand the expectations. They actually understand the requirements of high school, getting them early exposure and setting them up for success.
Started off top of the morning with Council Goodwin.
One of the most efficient meetings.
It was 11 minutes.
11 minutes.
Somebody censor him, man. He's going straight Yellow Spring.
Right.
Leave early, or are you sitting somewhere else?
I got a call from a kid. And I didn't.
She was.
What'd you say?
Wasn't that much to talk about this morning.
Nah, so you got jokes.
Very cold.
We going straight Yellow Springs out here.
I was
with water.
expecting a call, I was not expecting
Sun
a
out
call
here.
soon,
I'm just put X's.
so.
And you know I went, I paid for something the other day. And I just put like, when I had to do the song, I just put like that. It wouldn't let me go forward. I had to actually do some curves and then I'm like, hey, technology is scary, bro. They like, nah.
Let me grab it. I got you. This mine. I appreciate you.
Courts the craziness.
You say what?
He courts craziness. He embraces it.
What do you do now?
You see his hoodie? You see his hoodie? Say when they go low, we go lower. You didn't get that man.
I didn't look at it. Let me see that.
And that's like on remember on Cosby Show when he was like, I'm like, oh Yeller, I protect my house, and they was like, hey Cliff, you know at the end of the movie they killed old Yeller. they killed old Yeller, just to let you know. Oh man, how you doing, Leslie?
Everybody up?
Not yet, man. I should be up. Shut up.
I'd like to call this January 21st business meeting in session. Madam Treasurer, may we have a roll call?
President Goodwin,
Here.
Dr. Bailey,
Here.
Mr. Lacy,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Present.
Ms. Reiner,
Present.
Mr. Walker,
Present.
Ms. Wick,
Present.
Mr. Scott.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, next, I do want to start with stating our mission statement, vision, and purpose. Actually saw this is being done by both our superintendent and our business manager at their meetings, and I think as a board, we should also do the same practice. So our mission is to inspire, educate, and empower. Our vision is to inspire, educate, and empower scholars for a lasting impact. And our purpose is to cultivate a supportive and engaging educational experience. All right, and we're going to start with hearing of the bargaining units. Do we have any bargaining units here to speak today? All right, seeing none, Madam Treasurer, do we have any here individuals signed up to speak for the public today?
Yes.
Okay, give me 1 second. Like the state, it is inappropriate. Actually, speakers have 3 minutes. Please speak to the board through the president. Please limit your remarks up to 3 minutes. It is inappropriate to address any matter involving pending disputes, grievances under a labor agreement, disciplinary actions, including an employee or student, ongoing labor negotiations, concerns, or matters that have already been settled, and any other matter which, because of its nature, will be deemed appropriate to be discussed in executive session. Go ahead.
Janelle Henderson. Janelle Henderson. Okay, the next one is Toya Kober. Jamie Ryan.
Yes, please. State your name and address. Sorry.
Jamie Ryan, 2137 East 5th Street, Dayton, Ohio. Good evening, Board. As you may know, second quarter of the school year ended after winter break. I'm not sure how this affects elementary students and teachers, but what this means for high school students is that their semester exams are given after winter break. And although exams were canceled this year, I'm here tonight to advocate for ending first semester before winter break begins. I've spoken to a number of teachers and other parents, and they are in agreement with me that having students take semester exams after a 2-week break is not good for anyone. On one hand, you have very studious, academically inclined students who spend too much of their break studying for exams. On the other hand, you have students who do not study and fail to retain what they've learned during the semester, only to return to 1 or 2 days of review before exams. Either you don't get a real break or you do poorly on your exams. It's a no-win situation when exams are scheduled after the holidays. Last year, the semester ended before winter break. I'm here this evening to request that when planning future academic calendars, that the district go back to that model. For the good of the students and teachers, please end the first semester of the academic year before winter break. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers, Madam Treasurer?
No.
Thank you. Associate Superintendent Minor, I believe we have a presentation.
Yes, as you know, we've had, thank you. As you know, we had several inclement weather days, and so we are excited to share with the board and the community tonight information about our learning and recovery remote learning plan. And so we'll bring up Chief Sheehy's team, Mindy. Actually, Mindy will come up and will present the presentation on our remote learning plan.
Thank you. Board President Dr. Goodwine, Board and Assistant Superintendent Minor. Thank you. Go ahead. We currently have 15 days before we actually have to begin our adventure into exploring additional days into the summer. And so all of this is based on the required number of hours that the state has. We can claim, in essence, 6.5 hours per day of education for students. The greatest number of hours is required at the high school, and that is 1,001 in 712. And so, that being said, 15 is the number of days that we have 15 days left before we have to react and actually start making up days. Go ahead. So minimum hours and what hours count. So hours that count, or minimum hours, it's 910 for students in kindergarten through 6th grade, 455 for half-day kindergarten, and 1,001 for 712. Exceptions are parent-teacher conferences, and professional meetings, those kinds of things. Recess can be an exception as well, up to 15 minutes. Go ahead. So one of the things that we as an administrative team have committed to is ensuring that all of our kids are learning, and that all means all, and that these days are ensure that continuity for all students during the remote and recovery learning days. So students, the curriculum team has put together ideas and work so that they have meaningful review and practice work to complete. So administrator guidelines during these days are to provide clear instructions to staff, communicate with teachers, students, and families, ensure that there is equitable access, and to support teachers in determining appropriate and effective resources. Teacher guidelines communicate that they can provide support to students whether that's phone, email, or other two-way communication methods, Parent Square, Class Dojo, that materials and resources are aligned, and that students have what they need to be able to complete assignments. And then when students return to school, to review that assigned work in class and provide students feedback. From a district leadership perspective, we always want to share the why, and why we are making some of these decisions. For instance, today, the temperature. When our first student gets on a bus at 5:40 or 5:45 in the morning, and it is wind chill, I believe, -20, that's an important point of knowledge. And then guidance on assignments that'll help students. And then one of the things that we have really gotten in the habit of doing, especially with administrators and staff in the district, is really sharing that data, well, collect, analyze, share, and really acting on that data and information. And so I think that's where we really wanted to emphasize that recovery component to these remote learning days, is ensuring that we know where our students are, and that an opportunity to review work while ensuring that all of our students have equitable access is important.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Walker was first.
Oh, all right. Thank you for that. My question is, so when you do the remote learning, what is the intent when all staff reports? Outside of teachers, when we look at bus drivers that are reporting and things like that? That's a question that keeps coming up.
I'll take that one. The intent is for us to fill gaps during the course of the day in training, professional learning communities, teacher-based teams. Operations can have training. There's always things to do in operations. Drivers can have training on customer service. There are modules that they have to go through. Teachers still have de-escalation modules. There's some modules that they can't complete during work hours because, like the science of reading, but there's other work to be done in the interest of students. And I asked the treasurer's office about a week ago, I said, what's our salary outlay every 2 weeks? And it was over $15 million for our 2,500 employees. And so the thinking was, we have lots of gaps to fill, let's come to work and fill them.
Okay, and I don't know if this is for you or Dr. Jones, but bus drivers as well?
Bus drivers as well. They've been over there working.
Okay, appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Smith?
All right, first, from seeing some of the correspondence that goes out, what is the expectation for students when we have these remote learning days, as is regarding their work, turning them in, and how does that factor into their grades, would be my first question.
So regarding factoring into their grades, so the work that is assigned is actually how students are, how we are taking attendance for that day, because based on the plan, attendance is taken based on returning that work. Based on a grade, that is based on that individual teacher, is how much is that grade worth?
Okay, then that leads me to my second question. Being in a district where, I think over the last year, we've identified around at least 400 students that are homeless, we've also understand that at least a third of the group homes in the state of Ohio are in Montgomery County, and all but 5 are located in Dayton. How are we factoring that in with the expectation that then teachers are allowed to factor this work into their grades, knowing that a high number of our children are in adverse situations when they're not in our buildings? Are we looking into that?
I'll start, Board Member Smith. When we talked about this learning recovery, remote day, and cabinet, that was the first question that came up from an equity standpoint. How do we ensure that you don't need a device and you don't need a phone in order to be able to complete the work? Because we acknowledge all the things that you just said in terms of our student population. So no device, no phone. Complete the assignments. So that was a conversation.
Okay, and then in that conversation, as it comes out, I would like to be kept abreast on how we're keeping track of that, just knowing that there's just, when our students are not in our buildings, that level of equity just, it expands. You know, we have different situations, people are in different kind of environments when they are not in our buildings. And so I think when we're out there, and that goes along with, I think, some of the messaging that goes out. You know, we're sending messaging that says, you know, students need to turn in this work, and understanding that they're not all in situations where they have an adult looking at that message. They're not all having an adults that are looking at that are ensuring that they're working towards them, those assignments. So understanding that, and then I would also ask, secondly, if we're moving on that, if we could make sure that we're working with our staff, just with the timeliness of those messages. I know there are times when, you know, some of our buildings, they're letting out 1:30 or so. And so knowing that if our students aren't going to be there, that they're going to be in different situations. If staff is getting a message around 1 o'clock and they're getting out, they're starting to let out around 1:30, it really puts a crunch on getting that message out, especially getting that out to students who, until they get back with us, may not be in a situation where they're with an adult who's going to either help them or give that message to them, give them that extra push. So that would be my request with that, is that timeliness as we get those out. And then also just being aware on the front end of how are we making sure that, like you said, the work that is coming in, the grading aspect is up to that teacher. If we're working with our principals, with our teachers to understand that, because I would hate to be in a situation like we're in now, where we're either close to the end of a grading period, starting out a grading period, and a student is either losing points at the end of a grading period or starting out in the whole of a grading period because they're not in the buildings and they're expected to do work when they're not in those buildings. So that's all I have.
Board Member Smith, I appreciate you. You bring up a question about equity, and it's a wider question too. We had a policy change around equity, around grading, so that students wouldn't be allowed to give any grades less than 50 because some students don't have folks to advocate for them, and we looked at the grading policies and how inequitable they were based on research. And so I think you're absolutely right, and we want to pay attention to that for sure. Timely notification, absolutely. We're typically the first to say we're out in Dayton. We missed it last time. It was my fault. We missed it last time, but typically we're first, and I appreciate your comments.
All right, I'll circle back offhand with you, because I know a couple of buildings had a lot of parents who kind of missed those things, so I'll circle off with you offline. All right, appreciate it.
Board Member Witt, and then we'll come to you.
Thank you, President Goodwine. It is my number one priority to have our students in buildings, of course, and I know that's our leadership and administration's priority as well. I do appreciate the reflection here of the cabinet in this kind of immediate remote learning model. I think it is effective. It makes sense to me, understanding the complexities of our buildings and how we service. We can't go on 2-hour delays. We have too many buildings, too many buses. We'd be in school until 7 or 8 o'clock. So I really value and appreciate your consideration here. In that regard, I was happy to know that the buildings are open for lunches, and while I know it's a change in culture for our teachers to be in buildings when our students aren't, I do think that using the time wisely is important for planning, as Dr. Lawrence mentioned. One of the other things, and that the buildings are open for food service and warmth, should any of our families or students need it. I think that is really valuable. The other piece of that is, I know Dr. Lawrence has reflected oftentimes on his model of home visits, or especially checking on some of our most vulnerable families and students, and that could be our group homes. And if some of our buildings and our building leadership could then, once they, we get used to this model of service, that we could do more of that type of outreach. And at that point in time, it becomes outreach to some of those more vulnerable family students that need that touching point, that may have families that are at work, that can't do things. And I know that our students who are so connected with these students certainly can identify those opportunities there. So anyway, that's it. Thank you. I think that, I know it's been extreme. It's extreme for everybody. So I appreciate the response to keeping students safe and to trying to continue the learning model. So, and I just offer that in consideration of how we can continue to improve. So I appreciate you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Vice President Bailey?
Yeah, I just need some clarity, understanding on this. Like for our calamity days, if we're giving kids, the students, work to do at home, why do we get dinged if they're still doing work at home, and if they have the opportunity to still call teachers? And because I think that's what it says in here, that they could still have access to the teachers and stuff. So why do we get dinged with those days if they're still doing work? They're just not in the building.
So the 4 days, if you go to that chart, the 4 days that we got dinged for, or that we reduced our number of hours of instruction for, those were the 4 days that we were not in the building at all.
So, but the kids
Or we didn't say we're remote learning, or
Got you.
or that we were doing some learning recovery.
Okay, so if we're remote learning, then we don't get dinged for.
If we are remote learning, correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have a question. Then I'll go to you. It's more for he. Love to see you on up here. Come on up. I'm just kind of interested too, if you could just tell us a little bit about kind of the curriculum that is out for remote learning and what students are doing. And then I'm gonna ask Mr. Scott, since he is currently remote learning, how that's actually going.
So as you know, our academic action plan, there's a huge push for high quality instructional material. And so all of the resources that we have home connections. And so we're fortunate enough that all of the units that they are working on, there are home connections. In that home connections, there should be letters to parents to explain what they've been learning, what they've learned in the past, and how the parents can support their learning at home. So ideally, that's what's happening. In the upper grades, in the resources, it would be just more practice, more dialogue, information, and reading pieces that they can access and write about. So luckily for us, again, we have these new resources that have all of those components in it. And that's what we have asked our teachers to send home. And I'm glad that you asked that question, because we really want parents to know what they should be expecting so that they can advocate for their children, because we are really dealing with an equity issue, and we want every student in the district to receive high quality instruction. And so this is one of those ways that we are making sure that happens.
So those parents who, like, they may get the resources and it's been a minute since they've been in school, and if they need assistance, what should our guardians, because we have our foster care individuals, we have grandparents that have been out of school for ages, we have group home individuals who are running institutions that do these things. How can those individuals reach out for assistance if they just don't have the skill sets to perform the instructions that you've given?
So that's one of the responsibilities of the building administrators, to make sure that they communicate with the families at large. And then each teacher is supposed to have a written plan that they share with families as well, to say this is how we will communicate, and you can get support. And that's another reason why Dr. Lawrence really wanted to have the buildings open, so that parents can contact the main office if they have any issues, any concerns, they haven't received communication for any reason, they can contact the front office.
Okay, Mr. Scott. as a person who's actually doing this, how's it working?
I would say it's going pretty well.
Madam President, can we have him come to the microphone?
Oh, come to the microphone.
He got one.
Oh, you have a microphone.
He
I
has a
apologize. No.
microphone.
Sit down. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. I wanted to make sure that we could hear you, but we can because we have a microphone there.
I mean, if you want to stand up, you can.
Oh, I can hear you.
I know, I want to see. Let me see.
There you go. Flip the switch.
You good?
I got you. You were right. You were right.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Come on, talk to us.
But yeah, anyway, so I think it's going pretty well. I do see how there's like a communication aspect that does need to be like looked at there. I do remember like, I don't know, maybe it was last week, I can't tell, it seems all jumbled now, but there was a remote learning day that like we were supposed to write an essay or something. And that was never communicated to me through my school email, and it wasn't sent to my mother in any way. So like, I came to school the next day not knowing that I was supposed to write a whole like paragraph on something. But I do like that teachers are now giving out like actual printed off work. So it's easier to have it like a physical copy of something that you're supposed to do. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, may I ask him a few questions?
Come on back. You up here now.
Mr. Scott, do you see some of your peers in school who are not able to complete the work that's given to them for remote learning days? And if you do, what do you see as the barriers for their ability to get that work done?
Yeah, so if it's like online work in Google Classroom, I could see how some students who maybe don't have internet or like access to a laptop or something, that could definitely be a hindrance in getting that stuff done. If it's the physical work, I could see how some students like over the course of these 4 days of like, not either, like he said, 400 students that are homeless, so I don't know if like maybe those students have like lost that physical work or can't get it back to teachers. That may be an issue as well.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else have questions for Mr. Scott before you leave? Oh, come on back. Go ahead. Board Member Williams.
I just wanted, I want two more things, but they're really quick, so, but not.
Oh,
Not with me.
do you have any questions, Mr. Scott?
Not
For
at
the
this
people?
moment.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so we were in a meeting today, and it's funny because you don't know what to do with these things until they happen. It's been a long time since we've had cold snaps and stuff like this. So I love it that in their moment, we're having these conversations around solutions, and I think that's really good. And it's in that spirit that I offer that, you know, everybody is social media oriented, and how we could utilize potentially our PIO team to like say, first through third graders are writing this, third through five are writing this, and just like, that is a great way to engage families differently. And then if we didn't have like a remote kit that was always like, if it was something, a piece of the work that was required to have a remote kit for your work so that it didn't require immediate work of teachers. So those are a couple ideas I had. That's all. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Board Member Walker?
Thank you. So I'm just curious, when we look at remote learning now, was the election day remote work, was that a success? Like, what happened there, and did it work, and how are we looking at that now with this current remote work day?
That's a great question. Ms. Shee's got the data, but I saw Mr. Scott shaking his head. Maybe he wants to.
The day that I was supposed to write that.
Okay. Got you. We'll have to get back with you, Board Member Walker, and find out why he didn't get his paragraph. But she's got the data.
Yeah, I would just like to say.
Come up to the mic, please.
So, that was our first trial. It was.
Put the mic down.
It was well received. We actually went to collect them all to make sure, and the students knew. So we collected them all. We took samples just in case you guys wanted to see them, and we sent them back. But all the students did participate. The families were really engaged. And one of the things around equity that we've asked teachers, just in case, once they come back and hand their work in, if they have not completed it, they get 2 additional days. So if for some reason someone lost it or didn't have it, which that happened to my grandson, because I asked him about it and he was like, I said, no, go ask your teacher again. So once they go back, they have 2 additional days to turn that work in.
Okay. And then the last question for me, You mentioned a written plan. What is that?
So we did give teachers guidance on what to use to make sure that it was across the board. Because these are new resources, and some of our teachers may not be as versed in all of the pieces that go with it. We've asked them to make sure that they put this in as part of their daily instruction, but just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, so that the principals can communicate with families around expectations, and all of the resources are in the same space. So around communication, you know, a teacher at Belhaven gets the same information that a teacher at Horace Mann gets, so that we're all rowing in the same direction and we're keeping communication transparent.
Okay. And then, I think, looking back at this, I'm just curious. So 7 through 12 days remaining is 15, and then 1st through 6 is 29, kindergarten is 24. So let's say that 7 through 12 has now exhausted all of their days. So the intent would be still for K through 6 to still go on top of 7 through 12 being here as well.
I mean, that would be a decision that Dr. Lawrence made.
So you said high schoolers are done.
Yeah, so if high school days have
Tapped
run out and now they have to make
they
up
would,
that.
and they would have to go into the summer.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we have the remote learning days, so that we don't have to go in the summer.
Okay.
And also, I would say that, you know, we're getting close to February. I'll just say it, you know, the politics of these numbers were that teachers and administrators and staff all across the state did not want to go in the summer because it bled into the next year. So you had almost this kind of universal consensus where what are the number of hours that we can have that will almost never will fall below. And so I hope we don't get there. I hope what you just said doesn't come to fruition, but but if it does, we got a plan.
Okay, appreciate you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Board Member Smith.
All right, a few things. First for you, Dr. Lawrence, what are the possibilities around when we have these weather days? Understanding that part of why we're closed on some of these days are for our youngest students, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Then is there the possibility, because I know in the past, we've had days where the district is in school, and because of situations with certain schools, we've closed certain schools and not other schools, then what is the possibility to say, okay, it is extremely cold outside, so our elementary schools are closed, but we are going to open up our high schools, because that is a whole different situation. That would be my first question, so I'll hand that over to you, so I don't want to give you a rundown of questions and stuff. So
Okay.
what is the possibility of doing things like that?
We have a weather committee. We continue to explore what options look like, hybrid or not. I would say that right now, our position is that unless otherwise stated, we go with sports. We continue with those, which are high school and middle school kids, secondary kids. We proceed with sports, and all kids are at home at this point. It is something that we can look at.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, we look at these days, and the biggest thing to me is, we look at like today, the weather is yes, I wouldn't want a kindergartner or a first grader, second grader, I get that. But some of those days, okay, what about high schoolers? They're not waiting on these, they have a different situation. And I think sometimes, we do need to get a number. I think that would be clear for us too, to get a number of how many students actually ride the buses to school. Like getting these kind of things, so when we're making these decisions, we're actually looking at how many kids we're actually talking about. Then secondly, when we have these things, working around this thing where we ramp up and get people ready for a remote learning. I think one of the things that I'm hearing in the communities now is that it's one of those, all right, we're closed, now this is this new thing we're rolling out. And even when we talk to certain groups, certain students, certain populations, a lot of the students, a lot of the families that we may hear things from, they come from a different subset. You know, like if someone's in my home, compared to the majority of the district, they're in a privileged situation. You know, if a student is at my house and we're out, it's a different situation. I get to work from home. I get to be there with my children. I get to work on these things with my children and get to make sure these things are done. So I think I wouldn't want us to get in a mode where, because we don't want to go into the summer, that we're using remote learning and no learning is really taking place. Because if we're just being honest too, when we have these days and students aren't in school, it isn't like the rest of their world stops. Their parents still go to work. Their siblings are still going to work. So these are children who now, quite often, we saw this during COVID, they are students who are at home by themselves. And then we're saying this is a pseudo school day because we're calling it this remote learning day, when in reality, it's just a day that they are home or with someone else because their parents still are at work. So I think that is something, if we're really going to do this, how are we making sure that we just aren't cutting them short by really taking away the days of learning that they have, because they're really not doing the work. If they're, like, there are a lot of students who, when we have these days, like tomorrow, for instance, there are a lot of students who will not be getting up with parents who are helping them with packets, with parents that are making sure that they're calling in and talking to teachers if they need help, because those parents are still going to work. So how are we doing that and making sure that we just aren't creating something that helps solve another problem? Because what we're looking at are different problems. We're looking at a statewide issue, we're looking at a job issue, we're looking at mandates on how many hours we need to give students, but then we're also looking at how do we teach students, we're looking at equity issues, we're looking at communication issues, and I don't think we can just solve it by just blanking it and calling it a remote learning day if we're not addressing all of these issues that go into the lives of our students.
So one of the things, like when we had conversation about this being a remote learning day, one of the things that we also took into consideration was the fact that based on that table, we were 51 days from state testing beginning. And if we continued to take calamity days, and we were not providing work and students were not having those opportunities, then those are more days that we actually get further behind. And so this may not be the best case scenario, but it is also not the worst case scenario. I think when we were thinking about it in our minds, it was not about the summer, because given that we still have 15 days left, our perception is we're not going to get to that point.
No, we won't.
But our perception is, are our kids going to be ready and feel comfortable and prepared when they are faced with that state test in April?
Right.
And so whether we are in school or not in school, having it as a remote learning day and they are still having academic content, and is everyone going to end up doing it? Everyone's not going to have the support to end up doing it on that day, but might they get that support in the next day or two, like Ms. Sheehy was indicating? Potentially. And so that's just another opportunity to revisit topics that have already been taught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it gives us the opportunity to step back and look at how do we prepare our staff, how do we prepare our parents, how do we prepare families for these situations, knowing that we're going to be in this. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is how do we make sure that we're looking at understanding, okay, if we get in these situations, knowing that, okay, you're going to have students coming in who are now then behind. Mm-hmm. And we know we have this albatross of a test hanging over us, which is a bicker for a whole nother day, and we can talk about that another day. But understanding that, how do we then come together and say, when we have these situations, what is the best thing for us to do for these students in these situations? And I think I would be interested in seeing how can we gather our minds, how can we gather our teachers around, because they're the ones that are in this space. How do we get our administrators in the buildings together? How do we get that message out to parents? I think moving forward, having that rolling out as part of just the natural going back to school. Understanding that, hey, if we have these days, this is how we're gonna handle this. So then if I'm a parent and I know I have to go to work, my student's gonna be here, this is what's going on, I can even get the information to whoever the caregiver is. Like, doing these things, I think we're in a space now where it just hit us. But I think it gives us the opportunity to step back and say, how do we create a playbook for when we get this in the future? Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Are there any other questions? I just have one for you, Dr. Lawrence.
Sure.
How has our staff adjusted to this new remote work and being kind of at work without students here? It's a little different for us. So kind of what's the temperament been out there?
This is with my conversations with the presidents of the unions. What I've received, in particular from the teachers, is that there were very few complaints around the 9 to 2 when we were going calamity and the teachers were coming in 9 to 2. Now that we've gone back to a full school day, there's been an escalation in the number of teachers who are unhappy about coming back during the 4-day. So that's there's about 1,100 members in DEA. I cannot say exactly how many. If I had to guess, it feels like 65-35. So we have a majority of teachers are coming to work and working to prepare for kids when they come back and prepare for them while they're there to answer their questions. You do have, as in any school district, folks who there's a sentiment. I want to say this. Thank you for your question, because Ohio 8 superintendents and I have been talking about this. There's a sentiment that we've kind of transitioned to when the kids are home, and even if they're learning, that all the adults are home in public education. And this idea that hospitals are open, restaurants are open, city municipalities are open, county municipalities are open, people are at work. And there's this pathology out there now that we shouldn't have to work because kids are at home. And we think that there are so many things to do in this profession. What you hear people say a lot in education is, I don't have time. Well, we're creating 7.25 hours of time for you every day now when the kids aren't there.
Dr. Jones, on your side, how has it been for individuals who, like, even those who deal with children and those who don't? Same question.
Generally speaking, I'd say there's been a certain degree of frustration about coming into work, particularly for our drivers and nutrition services.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right. No other questions? All right. Dr. Lawrence, your first recommendation.
Thank you so much. President Goodwin, I recommend approval of the following classified exempt appointments.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Wick, second by Bailey. Any questions?
Did we skip A through C? Or do I need to?
We're on the first one on A.
He said classified appointments. That's what,
Classified
I was looking at A. He must
Classified
say A.
exempt.
Classified exempt appointments.
Please, we skipped A
Yeah,
through D.
No,
skip A.
oh, you read what was in there. Got it.
Yeah. Is that a refresh?
No, it was just in the recommended action.
Oh,
It says,
gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
He means that. Can you
Yeah.
correct? The motion is for A. Is that-
Yes.
So the motion is for A. Got it.
Yeah, it's for A. Administrative appointments.
Because it says up here classified exempt.
Oh,
All right. Are there any questions, comments?
No question, just reiterate Dr. Lawrence, our conversation. I just hope that we could figure out on this now vacancy at that building on what that would look like on the attendance piece with regards to that location. And if I can ask for a updated report on the attendance data from the student success coaches working in all of our high school and middle schools and the elementary piece?
Absolutely did it.
Thank you.
One piece is in motion already, and absolutely you can get that. They meet tomorrow at 9 o'clock, so we'll be able to follow up.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, no problem.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Treasurer, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yep.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Abstain.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
She was out there.
7 yeses, 1 abstain.
I recommend approval of the following DEA after July 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lacy, second by Ms. Wick. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Treasurer, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
No.
Dr. Bailey,
No.
Mr. Lacy,
No.
Mr. Smith,
No.
Ms. Reinhardt,
No.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
No.
Mr. Scott. 7 no, 1, no, 7 no, 1 yes.
I recommend approval of the following certified appointments.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lacy, second by Dr. Bailey. Are there any questions?
Madam President. Okay, on D, E, and F, it's budgeted first, then actual. I think that's what's intended here. I think, such as in C1, 657 is the budget.
No,
No?
the budget
But, well, the
is,
budget's changed with each additional employee?
We're over.
yeah, the budget is,
63, 64,
Oh, I see what you're
683, 684, and 685.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
over.
So,
Hold on, just jump out there, man. You gotta wait
No.
your turn.
that was,
So isn't this all one budget line item? Wouldn't the actual change?
the actual
yeah,
is,
that's what he said.
We're over.
Yeah.
I will say, Mr. Lacy, I did put a request in with Treasury to have this a lot clearer, because it's still confusing on where we are.
I do that.
Go ahead, Mr. Walker. Are you done, Mr. Lacy?
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were gonna figure out.
Yeah.
You were gonna tell me something else.
no, the budget is 685.
The budget is 685 for all,
Yeah.
okay.
For all.
And
And
there
this
were
is
657,
57
658,
actual.
and 659
Yeah.
in the actual.
So the actual should start going up as we see them on here and not reflect just 3 of the same thing as them coming on. Is that correct? Or is that incorrect?
So, okay.
I know the budget is 685. The actual is 657, but I will clarify it. I'll go back. and
657 is
Yeah.
with the 3 additional, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. My question's answered.
Okay. Mr. Walker?
I guess I'm confused. If the budget is, okay, so for instance, C1 has actual 657, budgeted 683. If the budget is already set, how are we increasing the budget every time someone else is
I
hired?
don't know.
Her answer is that the budget should read 685 in each case.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So my next question would be along C4. And that one is actual 166 with the budget of 145. Any clarity on that one?
We are, our elementary schools, well, we have more enrollment. We're one of the 2 districts that's increasing enrollment, Centerville and Dayton in Montgomery County. Our elementary schools, some of them are bursting at the seams, and so we didn't anticipate that. So in the case of intervention specialists, we are over.
Okay. And then my next question is, we've had this discussion before. Has there been any talk in HR on moving the needle on informing long-term subs about what opportunities are there for them to become certified teachers? Because I continue to talk to long-term subs who have not heard anything about what's out there for them and the opportunities that exist.
I can't really speak to that in terms of.
You got a chief of HR?
Yeah, I can't really speak to that in depth about what they know and don't know. I will say this, from a communication standpoint, we communicate lots of things, and some people read them, some people don't. I will follow up with HR and our associate superintendent to see if they've been invited to participate in the policy in which they can use their $5,000 to go to school, if we mapped out anything at UD, Wright State, or Central State.
Okay.
Can I still follow up to that before you go to something else? I know.
Let me,
Go ahead.
I was still on that budget.
Oh, okay.
I was reviewing the budget. I think we need to clarify this is incorrect. The budget is 657.
Yeah, we had 685.
Yeah, on
Okay.
the board doc, it has to be corrected.
So it's backwards.
Yeah.
So the board doc should read 657 on the budget side. On the actual side, it should read 683, 684, and 685. So we need to correct it.
So it's flipped. I'll let you go and then I'll ask my follow-up.
Yeah, it's a follow-up to yours. It's more of a request for a curriculum, because I worked with Chief Sheehy last year on something with to Board Member Walker's question about like that path to other opportunities. Even being able to give individuals information on the alternative license and kind of where they are, because, you know, step one, you have to have a bachelor's, master's, and then step two is you now have to prep for that test, because you can't get into the you can't take the next step of going into the institution until you pass the test of which there's a self-study test on that piece of it. If we can do something, even if curriculum and could work with HR too in that piece of us getting kind of that information out. I don't know how you guys are going to stratify between the different areas that people may be in based on what their bachelor's degrees are, but if there is some way that we can figure out how we can let just people know, like the first step is on you to apply with Ohio Department of Education for the alternative license, and also getting that next thing of registering and starting to study for the test, because then we can get to that, us being able to reimburse, because it's a reimbursement, it's not an upfront thing that we do, of them getting into the institution for them to get towards that alternative license. So if you guys can kind of work together on something for that and kind of bring something back, so we can hopefully get some of our talented long-term sub teachers to licensure, that would be kind of really great.
Thank you. With that, okay, so if the budget is 657, are these certified teachers that are now at 685, or is long-term subs in here? Because it seems like, I'm just curious on the long-term sub line item has 145, and I'm pretty sure we have more long-term subs than 145.
That's an intervention specialist, that's 145.
Yeah.
So there's 145 intervention specialists that are long-term subs?
Okay, long-term subs are in with teachers as
Yeah.
one line item.
And he was saying they did more intervention specialists due to the increase, is that correct?
That's correct.
It just says LTS on there. I'm not sure which one it should be. If that's the same thing, or if there's another section.
The budget is one.
Okay, the treasurer's pointing out to me that actually it is the column, the headings of the columns are incorrect. They should be switched, that's all. The
Yeah.
budgeted should come first and then actual. So actually, we are within
Under
budget
budget for
on
that.
intervention specialists.
Okay, thank you.
And long-term subs are all part of the same line item as the other teachers.
Got it, okay.
As the teacher sub line item.
Well, okay, because there are a little fewer than 900 teachers, of which about a little fewer than 700 are certified, and I think it's close to a couple hundred long-term. So that, we need to go back and look at that altogether, because that doesn't add up.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Your next recommendation?
Recommend approval of the following classified appointments.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lacy, second by Mr. Walker. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is the same. So is it 147 pairs that are budgeted, or, because these numbers don't change?
I think they're all backwards.
Yeah.
So if we can just
Yeah.
make a.
Yeah, I think this
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 one is right.
this
This one
is
is-
the opposite. So this
Yeah.
one's probably correct.
Okay, so we're over.
So
Well, no, because both numbers say 132 and 147.
We will be under budget.
well, 132 is the total with the 2 added in.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is D1 and D2 both have 147. And,
As the budget,
The
for the
budget.
for the paraprofessional.
right, and then
line.
the actual has 132 both as well.
And that includes,
That would
before
be
this,
them
it was,
in there.
the actual was 130.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we just get clarity to make sure? And then, as a follow-up question, I know that we just had let some pairs go. So are these ones certified and won't be a part of the next round of this, or?
We did let some, it was a board directive to not hire any more that weren't certified, so I'm sure these are certified.
Request the treasury can, for our next meeting, because again, thank you for it being on here this time, but our next meeting, can we get this in a way that is easy to digest for not only us, but the public too, to see that piece of it? I know I've already made that request for you, but I just want to make it again publicly here.
We lost, what's hard about seeing the actual and the budgeted?
Knowing what the scale is up on it, like where they at in it.
I just don't see what's hard about it, but whatever. Like, it's the number.
Yeah, for me, it's just making sure that the numbers are correct and if it's unbudgeted or on the actual side.
I don't see how you make that clear. I guess you just go
We
check
didn't
it
all go
out.
to Xavier.
Correct. Facts, thanks, Mr. Lacy.
I just don't see how it's hard. Like, it's 2 numbers. It's like.
All right, are there any other
I feel the
questions?
same way.
Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Your next recommendation?
I recommend approval of the following classified exempt employee.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Wick, second by Mr. Lacy. Are there any questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Your next recommendation?
I recommend approval of the following supplemental appointments, and please see the corrections.
So moved.
So, second.
Moved by Board Member Wick, second by Mr. Lacy. Are there any questions? Mr. Walker, go ahead.
So if we're removing previous board action, will someone else be taking this on? I'd say this is forensics and debate coach, or I thought Ms. Minor when it was coming out.
No, that'd be the Sheehy's group.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
We will get back with you on that. We have
I can answer for you.
replacements for that.
Let me tell you the answer.
You know that?
I do know the
Go
answers.
right ahead.
According to the team here, the ones that are removed, they actually didn't take the positions. The ones that are split, which I believe is the Belmont group, they were boarded. They both received full supplemental, but they both worked. They actually split it, and they've done it for the last couple of years. On that one, what else is there? That's pretty much it. They removed, they didn't take the positions.
It comes from your debate coach.
You know I'm in there, I'm in the trenches right now.
Thank you.
It's deep. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes?
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Your next recommendation?
I recommend approval of the following athletic supplemental appointments.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lacy, second by Ms. Wick. Are there
Sorry about
any questions?
I'm at the doghouse.
Mr. Walker?
Dr. Jones, can we just have an update on coaches, on if all teams have been filled, if there still are openings, or looking at spring, because winter should be done, right?
Yes, I can prepare that seasonal report for you. I'll send it here in the next couple of minutes.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
No, don't leave that. I got questions for you.
Mr. Smith?
I was just open to act,
Smith?
Okay. No, with that, I would like to also know what offerings are we gonna have, if we can get that out soon. One, understanding that in some spaces, if there's in a building where, right now we don't have enough students that are gonna do softball. It allows our students, our staff, our ADs in the building to know kind of where they are. I think not only for us, but then in that building, if we could work on some kind of piece to know. I think we have something already on the number of kids that we need to have for programs. I think if we can kind of have that, I know especially with our spring sports, boys volleyball and girls flag football, wherein we didn't have those in all buildings. So I think getting ahead of that, understanding where the numbers are, where coaches are, not, also just where the fields, what the field updates are. I know a couple years ago we put in to have some updates at the baseball and softball fields. If you could send us out an update on kind of what those look like, what are some of the needs there, that would be good. Secondly, what is the status of our buildings where we have the leaks that are kind of hampering some of the issues with the basketball court? I know Thurgood was one of them. I can't think of the other school, but do you have any updates on that?
I do. We sent out a crew to assess the situation at those buildings that were having leaks. And to be honest, we'll be coming back to you with a proposal.
So some ratifications on sending out some bread to fix
Yes.
some leaks, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I see how you're trying to get us.
Yeah, and then in the spring too, we actually posted all of our athletic positions for the spring, so they're on the consortium.
Okay.
But I can still send it.
So with the leaks right now, how does that affect Thurgood Marshall's basketball for boys and girls basketball,
So-
and then moving into boys volleyball?
So ironically, today, we didn't have any leaks at the building. On this past Saturday, it was leaking like a sieve in multiple locations today. Again, maybe the snow melted or the ice and
So it's at the end of the day, we're just gonna have to go in there and fix the roof up there.
correct. Yes, sir.
That's just what it is. I'm gonna have Brother Scott over there with an eye on it, man. Brother Scott gonna keep it. Is it leaking over there like crazy, Brother Scott?
Has it been,
Oh, man, it's all,
ain't been in school?
it's been crazy. Like, didn't we just have this last year though, too?
We did, yes, in multiple buildings, actually.
So I blame Dr. Lawrence too then
He
as
was
well.
business manager, as you like to say.
Yeah, like, okay, and then, so, okay, I appreciate that. And then lastly, I know we had a conversation around, getting with Jefferson and Trotwood. Are there any updates on how those conversations have been?
So Victoria and Jonas Smith have come together to kind of sketch out what the spring season looks like.
Okay.
In terms of scheduling games and everything. Chief Jones and I also sat down and came up with a set of bylaws, and we'll be having a meeting here soon with AD Jonas Smith.
Okay, and then Mr. Clifford over at Jefferson, who has been his representative in those conversations? Or do they, what sports right now does Jefferson have for the spring?
Board Member Smith, we are way off of the topic here, though.
It's fine.
I mean, I'm saying, can we come back when we get to his
We
comment?
can, Dr. Goodwin, can I
know,
just
but
have
can
my,
we get-
okay,
can
can
we
you
just
answer
come back
that,
to when we
please,
get to
Mr. Jones?
I am not sure about Jefferson's athletic offerings yet.
Okay.
Kind of sporadic, but I'm sure they'll have track in the spring.
All right, appreciate it.
Any other questions about the motion on the floor? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Your next recommendation, Dr. Lawrence?
Dr. Goodwin, it's my final recommendation. I recommend approval of the following contracts and agreement for a vote. You don't have anything new from last week's review session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Lacy, second by Board Member Walker. Are there any questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yeah.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Madam Treasurer, your first recommendation?
I recommend the approval of the monthly financial report for December 2024 as reviewed by the Finance Committee on Thursday.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Lacy, second by Board Member Bailey. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
Can I have some clarity on what actually is tied inside of the chief of schools budget?
On Chief of Schools budget, it's payroll and any non-payroll items.
Okay, so if I'm looking at like school administration, right? So school administration with regards, that line is not in chief of schools. So chief of schools is the only payroll that's inside of there, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. You may want to request that they send you a breakdown of it.
Yes. And then Dr. Lawrence, can I just ask a follow-up on the in-school pairs? I know we talked about this before, and I'm just curious because I see only 21% of that line item has been spent. So is paraprofessional still being utilized for ISS, or is long-term subs doing that now, or what is?
The reason you see that is that's a budget adjustment. We use ESSER's funds before. So that's why that number seems so low.
Okay. And then another question I had was, what is past required services? It's under exceptional children, I see.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have pass-through money that we have to pay for students that are in other counties around the state
Got
that
it.
we have
Yeah.
to pay money for.
Okay. And then just if I can get a report, some of these budgets on here are already at 89 or 90%, and we are in January and they still have 4 months left. So I'm just curious on what's going to happen. I thought Sarah was getting up on.
Coming up, I got it.
Want to answer some questions?
Say like, hey. No, but yeah, if I could just have some clarity on like what is the game plan going forward with these, like if that budget, if it's on track to max out, would it be an increase, what that increase may look like?
Some of them are
They've been getting-
encumbered,
Okay.
so most of our departments tend to encumber the whole budget, so you see under the encumbrances. So really, they can finish that encumbered amount, and I don't think they will be over the budget, most of them.
Those departments are encouraged, especially with materials and supplies, they're encouraged to spend the money early so that they can be in the buildings and in the hands of kids and teachers. And so we plan on those to run out relatively early, instead of holding the money until the end of the school year. Go right ahead, David.
No, that was my comment.
Gotcha. We're same page. I love it.
Okay, and then lastly, under chief academics area, student services has only spent 6% of their budget. What is that actual budget? It says chief academic student services with the,
Like, I got some money?
hey, it just say 6% has been spent. Only 19,320 is remaining.
I might wanna request that for them too.
Yeah, well, it's on one of my committees, so I'll
There you
be sure
go.
to follow up. Appreciate it. That's all my questions.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes?
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Your next recommendation?
I recommend the approval of minutes for November.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lacy, second by Mr. Walker. Are there any questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes?
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Your next recommendation?
I recommend the approval of the following purchase requisitions as they were reviewed last week.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lacy, second by Dr. Bailey. Are there any questions? Seeing none, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes?
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
Thank
That-
you.
That concludes my recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, would you like to continue now the conversation with the business manager?
Oh, no, I'm good. You answered my questions.
Okay,
Can I ask?
go ahead.
So we're going to have below zero tonight. Are we going to have any frozen pipe, bursting pipes?
The operations team have been checking buildings all day, and I can't say with 100% certainty that we won't have any busted pipes, but I'm pretty confident that we'll be okay.
Was something done across the street to make that? Because I know we did have burst pipes there one year or something.
So the heat is actually on. It's not cold in the building.
Okay.
Any other questions for the business manager? All right, moving on to board travel. I recommend the approval of the following board travel.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lacy, second by Dr. Bailey. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
If we can just get an update on where we are right now with our budget and a breakdown, if possible, of how that budget is being spent.
Ms. Kidd, can you handle that for us, please? Oh, Ms. Garrett, you know Ms. Kidd.
I see Miss Kid over there.
Think they
Where's
look
Kid
alike.
go?
Think they look alike.
She's probably upstairs.
Oh, okay. Did you have something?
Yes, Madam President, may
Go ahead.
For the board's information, the Network for Public Education is having its annual conference in Columbus this year. This was a discussion at the Badgers Heard Ohio Lawsuit Coalition Steering Committee meeting that I went to last week. As a steering committee member, the coalition will pay for my conference registration, but the district will cover the one night at the hotel out in Columbus for me. I'm really excited for this conference, and I will talk about it a little bit more in my own new business section. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? You got something?
So it says there's only 4,000 left according to the monthly financial in December.
Okay.
Just
All right, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Reinhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick,
Yes.
Mr. Scott. 8 yeses.
All right, next are the board committee assignments. You guys have received your assignments. I also sent you an email requesting that if you could really work with our board employees to determine staffing that would be appropriate to work on those committees with you and come up with dates so we can have those dates for the public who would like to attend those by the February business meeting. That would be greatly appreciated. Other than that, I do want to say, I want to go ahead and I asked Ms. Kidd this one, if we can appoint our legislative liaison, I want to appoint Board Member Jocelyn Reiner as the primary and Board Member Eric Walker as the alternate, because those two are the two who are the most active when it comes to that. You will get a communication out asking you, again, some commitments to make to visiting schools, because I did forget to do that one, but again, we'll get with that. Mr. Scott, there are some committees too that that I'm hoping that you actually can appoint some of the student senate individuals to as well. So I will make sure that you get those ones, and at our next meeting, if you can have some appointments yourself to shoot our way so we can actually have some student representation on some of these committees, that would be refreshing for us. All right, thank you.
Before you move on, so are these two not combined anymore?
There, Ms. Kidd put it in some format, but the one I sent you guys is we combined several things for them to actually follow better. So yes, they are. I don't know this format. I didn't write that.
Yeah, no, mine is more so along with, I thought Parent-Family Communication had like its own policy for a committee, and just trying to figure out the correlation with that one joining the cultural engagement and inclusion.
Well, overarching this year, I wanted to try something different of seeing the lack of committees that met last year and hearing our staff's kind of complaint about the amount because we had 23 committees in total. I combined several things that seemed similarly related, that they were crossover. So with parent engagement and culture and inclusion, we are targeting the same group of kids. So I'm interested to see what that committee will do with it this year. Which any chair of the committees, please, I'm very interested and hopeful that you guys are all able to pull out some really good stuff from this. And my hope too is at the business meetings and in part of your comments that you guys are giving report outs of what's happening in those committees, which Mr. Lacy is the only one of us who does it consistently at every meeting for that one. So I'm really hopeful that people can actually bring some stuff to the table and we're able to get some things accomplished. Anything else? Because we're about to go into comments. All right, comments. Let's go, Mr. Lacy.
Yeah, we technically we really didn't have a finance committee meeting because the finance committee had yet to be formed. But but a group of us did meet with the treasurer, and we went over the financial statements for the month of December, and they were in good order.
I'll take it.
And that's all I have.
Got that.
Thank you. Board Member Wick.
Well, I don't think I have anything this evening. Just kudos to the team for continuing to work through these extreme situations and our families and our community and our teachers. And I know we're all being called to higher response, and I certainly appreciate all of that. Look forward to our new leadership and our new team this year and our new structure. And Mr. Scott will work together on those student senate positions and the subcommittees. I'd love to work with you on that. So anyway, thank you, everybody. That's all I have.
Board Member Smith.
Went out. I enjoyed flying to the hoop, going to see Dunbar. Although I do have a big bicker about how they treat our Dayton public school kids, but that's something I'll bring up with Dr. Jones and Ms. Victoria Jones on a separate day. I do, when it comes to the board committee assignments, I do have, I don't know. I'm looking at, and I think it comes off of Walker's comment around the cultural engagement inclusion. and then parent and family engagement. I do see a real separation in those, and then seeing especially how we have a whole separate committee for EOL committee. So I'm looking at how that will go. I know I talked to Dr. Worley, and so I'll probably continue to meet with him on some of those things and some of the changes. And I know that's been a up and down thing throughout my time here. I know that we've had board members vote on abolishing roles in that sector before, and seeing that kind of being lumped in with something else. I just think that may further some discussion down the road, but I'll probably still work with them on that, because I just think there are some things that we need to look at when we talk about some of our spaces in there, because that really takes out that whole piece and then lumps it into something that was totally separate. Outside of that, look forward to the year. I just encourage us to really be mindful when we have these just tough times, to really be mindful of those who are less fortunate. It is very easy for us to get into privileged mindsets. I think it is very easy to get into a space where we think about what we have and what we're able to do, and not realizing that the people in this room truly represent the highest percentage of the students' families that we deal with. So I think I encourage us to really get into that space of how do we make sure that our families that are of the greatest needs are really lifted up. I want to shout out those that went out and celebrated in some way for MLK Day. I really want us to, lift that up. It was really, really cold. I saw Dr. Goodwine and board members Wick and Lacey out there at the march. I was freezing with them, but I braved it for the 2.5 block march. So I appreciate that. I know Dr. Bailey and board member Walker also were at the MLK concert. And then we had a whole group of students and staff out at the MLK dinner last night, which was truly amazing. I just want to thank everybody who was there at that thing, because it really, really put us in a good space. I think DPS had the best showing of any table last night, so I appreciate everybody that went out there. And I just challenge us to really understand what we talk about when we talk about Dr. King's message, and understanding that Dr. King was not always accepted. He was not always loved. He was not a person that people really lifted up the way we talk about it now. And so that is the mindset that I think of when I think of Dr. King, as someone who constantly pushed the needle and challenged people to do what is right instead of what is expedient. So appreciate that, and I have nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Reiner.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a few items. First off, I would like to thank our employees and our leadership for keeping the safety of our students at the forefront of the decision-making. It's not easy to extend a break that has been 2 weeks. It's easy for some of the kids, I won't lie. My kids were pretty thrilled to have a very extended winter break. But we understand it's not easy from a test-taking perspective and from a teaching perspective. I was lucky enough to have been given a little glimpse into some of the decision-making that went into this latest round of remote learning days, and the thoughtfulness and the dedication with which I saw employees put into this. I was not surprised, because this is what our staff does, and this is why I'm so grateful to be able to work with them. Good luck to all the kids and the teachers and the staff as we continue to navigate the cold weather that's happening, and we're grateful for your feedback. As an item of note of the work that I've been doing outside of this boardroom is in December, the Ohio School Board Association Southwest Regional Executive Committee had its December meeting. It was here in Dayton, and it was the same night as a board meeting, and I didn't think I was going to make it, but the board meeting actually went really short. So I went over and I hopped over to Dublin Pub, and I was able to join them there. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with the Southwest region, to work with my colleagues, to network with them, and have them as a resource when we are struggling with issues and to be a resource for them when they have the same. The Vouchers Heard Ohio Steering Committee meeting, as I mentioned earlier, was last week. As none of you probably recall, but I talk about this frequently. The trial was expected to start on November 4th, and it was delayed again. We are looking at oral arguments starting in late April. It has been a long 3 years defending public education and defending the use of public tax dollars on public education. It has gone on longer than a lot of us have anticipated, but I'm grateful that Dayton is a plaintiff in this fight. I'm grateful to be on the steering committee. The conference that is happening is one. So a little bit of information about this conference. This is held in states annually, states that struggle to defend spending public tax dollars on public education, and states where funding public education is not something that everybody in the state agrees on. It's been held in a couple different states, and Ohio is the one that they chose this year. A number of my colleagues from across the state are presenting, and I'm really looking forward to this two-day conference. The new General Assembly in the Ohio State House has convened. Members are sworn in, and committees are currently being formed. Committee chairs have been announced, and we have yet to see the entire committee structure. I have been working with a lot of my colleagues, my past colleagues who have moved on to the State House. It is really wonderful to see such bright minds that have worked on school boards all across the state join the State House General Assembly, and to see the work that they're doing to further the work of public education. So I'm excited to see committee structures and assignments and start reporting for bills once they've been proposed. And I will, as always, bring updates to board meetings when that happens. We also have 2 new senators that are representing the great state of Ohio. At this point, I would like to again thank Senator Brown for the service that he did representing in our state. It was always a pleasure to work with him and work with his staff whenever I went out to DC. He always had substantial questions. He always knew that public education was the promise that we make to every single child in this country. And he was a defender and an advocate and a fighter for public education. I have not yet met our 2 new senators. I'm expecting to go out to DC fairly soon, and I'm hoping to be able to meet them or meet their staff. Staff is always a really, really good meeting. No matter what your politics are, staffers are there to do the work. And I have always enjoyed talking with staffers, telling them a little bit more about Dayton, telling them a little bit more about Ohio, hearing their questions and giving them feedback. This is the work that is really, really important. It might not be here in Dayton, but it affects people here in Dayton. So I will bring reports to Dayton when that happens. And then speaking of which, I just kind of wanted to bring something to your attention. This happened at the Finance Committee last week. So for viewers at home, if you want to look at these documents, they are available on board docs. But I'm going to pull up the monthly financial report that is under our board docs for this month that we were discussing earlier during the monthly financials. If you go to page 9. So there's been a lot of talk about abolishing the Department of Education, not typically from advocates for public education. And a lot of people don't understand what the Department of Education does because, Dayton, the Ohio Department of Education, states run their own educational programs. The majority of our funding does come from state funding. We have property tax funding. But a lot of people don't know the importance of the federal Department of Education. There was a conversation on social media a few months ago about abolishing the Department of Education. And I saw a few arguments that said, well, we don't need all this bureaucracy. This will make districts nimbler and more able to be efficient. And There's a lot that we do here in this district that is dependent upon the mandates that we get from Department of Education and the funding that we get from Department of Education. So when I was looking at page 9 in the Finance Committee, I asked our treasurer, which of these special revenue funds are federal funds? How much money are we dependent upon from our federal government, from the Department of Education? And if you look at special revenue funds, there's a number to the left, and then the fund name. Every single fund that starts with the number 5 is federal funding. So I'm going to go down the list. The first one is ESSER's fund, and that was temporary. We have finished our ESSER funding. But for note, that was this year, the appropriations were $17,460,171. But we have Fund 509, 21st Century. Fund 516, IDEA Part B, Special Education. 524 is Vocation Education, Carl Perkins. 536 is Title I, School Improvement A. 551 is Title III, Limit English Proficiency. Fund 572 is Title I, Disadvantaged Children. 584 is Drug-Free Schools. 587 is IDEA Preschool Handicapped. 590 is Improving Teacher Quality, and 599 is Miscellaneous Federal Grants. I'm not going to name the number, well, these numbers are big, I want you to know. 21st Century is $1,553,138. IDEA Part B Special Education is $8,685,759. Total, because I'm not going to read out all those numbers because you guys don't want to hear that. The total number of appropriations for this district for federal funds is $39,093,777. I am so grateful for the funding and the work that we do because of the Federal Department of Education. That is all I will say. Thank you, President Goodwin.
Thank you. Board Member Walker.
I thought it was a baby. Thank you. I appreciate it. So for my comments, I was trying to figure out how to phrase it, but just to say it, correct. Governor DeWine did appoint now Senator Husted to the new vacant seat. But again, this is an individual who has advocated for increase of vouchers. This year, vouchers alone is $459 million, and this is who we now have in Washington representing us. So to support an individual like that is a slap in the face to public education. And I mean, to piggyback on that, one, kind of glad that he's in Washington because now he doesn't get to run for governor here in Ohio to do more damage to us. Next piece for me would be, the local news likes to print articles about elected officials all the time, but I think one of the ones that they fail to realize is the city of Dayton, as well as across Ohio, has basically identified as a racism as a public health crisis. And the fact that news articles continue to do racist things is very troubling, especially with our local ones here in the city of Dayton. The next piece for me would be, I would like to welcome, Dr. Stacey Benson Taylor, Ms. Sarah Hamilton to Dayton Public Schools. Very well qualified individuals and glad that they're here working. I look forward to the work. I'm glad that you all are part of the team. Now we have a full team here in the district of a superintendent, business manager, treasurer, and internal auditor. Glad to see the work in you all's lanes and not crossing over to areas where are not really your concerns. But more of a collaborative approach and not an individual approach. I'll use that word. Next piece for me, to my colleagues, and to our board staff and PIO, thank you for acknowledging my appointment to the state's Ohio School Board Association Black Caucus. Excited for the work there over these next 2 years to do more work to advance equity across districts here in Ohio, and looking forward to those opportunities there. Did attend some athletic events. Since I don't get the referee here in the district anymore, it's great to go out and support the students in Dayton Public Schools. But also, the public likes to say that the board only supports athletics. That's a lie. I did actually go out to see the Stivers auditions as well. I think Meadowdale just invited me to a business lunch piece that they have. So there's plenty of things going on here in Dayton Public Schools outside of athletics. Hopefully one day the news will do better at covering those as well. Thank you.
Thank you. If you guys can't tell, why the two people to the right of me are the legislative people. They just dropped a lot of nuggets on you guys in the last couple minutes. Mr. Scott, Senator Scott.
Mr. Bailey.
No, he's last. He's the vice president.
Since when? Worrying about her order, bro.
I didn't prepare much because I was hoping to have had gone to our student meeting, but you know that got canceled because of this crazy weather. So like, I'll talk about that one. So, but yeah, I'd like to put more emphasis on yesterday. We should always remind ourselves of our history and where we've come from as a people and how we can always improve on that. And it has been a very divisive time these past couple months. So no matter where we are, you know, we can all come together as people in the city of Dayton for our students. That's where I'm going to leave it with a good message right there.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Dr. Bailey.
Yeah, I don't have much. I just want to piggyback off of Mr. Smith. It was really good because last year at the MLK dinner, me and Dr. Lawrence had talked. I don't know if he remembered or not, but we didn't have any students there at all. There was only about 4 board members there. In this past MLK dinner, we had all the board members there that showed up, and we had a full table of Dr. Worley. Had probably about somewhere between 8 to 10 students at a table, and it really was good to have our students to represent DPS like that. So kudos to you, Dr. Lawrence, and DPS for having our students out there to be able to participate in things like that. I know when I was growing up, we participated in almost a little bit of everything, and I don't see that with students, but it was good to see our DPS students there. I think that's all I really have right now. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hamilton, you got anything? Got any comments? It's always fun to, you know, like I didn't know I was coming up. Any comments for us?
I just wanted to say that I'm extremely excited to be here with you all and to serve as the internal auditor for the district. I'm really excited to partner, obviously, with the board and then also with management. I've been able to meet with, I believe, all of the department leaders that report to the superintendent, the treasurer, the business manager, and I'm confident that we have a really great team here at DPS. Everyone is passionate about what they do and passionate about the students that they serve. And so I'm really excited to partner with them to continue to be mindful of the financial stewardship of Dayton and Dayton Public Schools specifically. And yeah, I'm excited to get to work.
Thank
So
you. Dr. Jones.
I'd also like to welcome Dr. Stacy Benson-Taylor. She's a wonderful addition to the team. I'm looking forward to the really good work that we're going to do together. And I'd also like to say it's not often that you experience the level of inclement weather that we did in the past couple of weeks. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't give a huge shout out to Rob Hunter and his grounds crew. Dr. Lawrence and I actually went down to the grounds garage compound, and the snow was piling on by the minute. We went and gassed up the trucks, and once they started plowing snow, they didn't stop until that Friday, that Thursday. I mean, they were moving a lot of snow, and so when you see those guys, man, shake their hands, say thank you. Because they're often overlooked. Their work is overlooked. So,
Thank you. Madam Treasurer.
I would like to congratulate and say thank you to the Treasury team for their dedication to the district. They work during the holiday, the snow days, and to pay our employees and vendors correctly and on time. Also, HSA was funded the first week in January, which was really good. W-2s and 1099s are completed and they are going to be mailed this week, way before the deadline, which is 31st. A comprehensive annual report was done, completed and audited, and mailed to JFOA and ASBO for our awards. I hope we will get our awards as usual. Another one is pay increases. Pay increases for administrators and DSSs will be paid by the second pay in February. The retro will be calculated from July 1st to the February, and we will issue a separate check for that one as requested. That's it for tonight.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. I know if people didn't hear anything else, they heard that they getting paid by the second paycheck in February, so thank you very much. Dr. Lawrence.
I want to thank the bus drivers for my plaque and roses. It was a wonderful Friday out there with them doing karaoke, and I appreciate my award. It's going to be posted in my office, and so are the roses. Thank you so much. I want to thank Craig Anderson, Zakia Liggins, Stacy Worley, Denise Gum. The students were at MLK, but they coordinated a special route for them, so our van drivers picked them up, door-to-door service, and brought them there. That's that collaboration across departments. We don't necessarily see titles, we just figure out how to get the kids there. So it was transportation, operations, curriculum, and my administrative team, so we can make sure you all got there and you all look fantastic. We got the pictures and we're gonna post them, if they're not already posted. And then also, I'm looking forward to this new school year, this year 2025 with the new president and vice president, and that's the end of my comments for today.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming out. MLK Day was very cold, as everyone has mentioned, but everyone who was out there and braved the super short walk, because when I was a kid, we started at Westwood. I mean, West Town, and we walked all the way up and crossed the bridge and then sat down a little bit and then hopped on the RTA. So the couple blocks we went, it was nothing to the true OGs out here in the street. I want to thank Dr. Lawrence. I had not made it out to one of his central office meetings, and I made it out last week, I think. I rambled for some time. People said I said some things, but I know they're saying that because I'm the board president and a board member. So I hope I did not waste your time too much with the comments that I provided, but it was really good to see Dr. Lawrence in a light that we don't necessarily get to see as board members because we don't see him interact with regular people. So that was pretty cool to see, and you kind of normal out there. It was kind of good to see.
I'm trying.
I'm excited. I'm excited about what we have coming up here. Like, we have a lot of good work that's going to happen this year. I think 2025 has started off with a good bang. Even our first comment out here today was a really good suggestion, which I do hope that Dr. Lawrence and Chief Sheehy and Associate Superintendent Minor take about really maybe cutting off the second quarter before the break. I mean, it makes sense. No one's studying over Christmas break. So I do hope that you guys heard those words and that we do see some resolve that comes to that one. I do want to reiterate, I do appreciate all the accolades and all the messages that I've received from individuals holding this position. As I told Board Member Smith, I did not remember the amount of people who call you once the title changes. So it's a lot, and it's been an experience. I want to thank our grounds crew as well. I didn't shovel snow over here, but I was one of those individuals at my actual job that was out there from the time it started till it went down. So I do understand that is a lot of work that goes into people moving snow. And it's a whole orchestra of people who are trying to make things get clear. And the more that we can help teach people that it's not as simple as you coming down the street with a blade and a little bit of salt. There's a lot that goes into when the snow comes down and moves. So I do appreciate the creativity that our team has had this year of ensuring that we are doing some things to allow kids to stay connected. And especially, as I tell Dr. Lawrence all the time, we are living post-COVID. We actually had to do a full time where we could only rely on internet and remote things like that. So to see us start intertwining it as a part of our regular day and our regular motto is really good. That's pretty much all I have to say, because you got something else?
I forgot the Family Wellness Day, January 25th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at David H. Ponitz. Hope to see everyone there.
I'm excited too. I do want to thank three of our teams, Dr. Lawrence, Madam Treasurer, Ms. Hamilton, and Dr. Jones, as they have helped us secure judges for the debate competition that I don't know when it's gonna start, because it's really cold outside right now, and we got younger kids, so it may get pushed back again, but I do hope that when that schedule is posted, please come out. As to echo Board Member Walker, there are a lot of things that happen in our district. Athletics is a big one, but we got some real good academic programs that are occurring right now too. We have a science fair coming up. I believe we have our speech contest. Lucy, you know, as a former winner of the Lucy May.
I make it that far.
It was back in the elementary days. I do hope that people come out and we post this information. I'm really excited about our debate program, because we got a good range of talent of what's coming through there, and they need your support and feedback to just show them to use their wit for some good for once. And that we really hope that you guys I think the season runs between January and April. We hope to see you in the schools, checking the kids out, coming to support, giving them words of encouragement, because public speaking is very hard for many adults. So imagine if we can help our students at this moment of their life just kind of get over that piece and know that you can be comfortable in your skin. With that, pursuant to section 121.22G2 of the Ohio Revised Code, I move that this board goes into executive session. This meeting is being held to consider the appointment, employment, and dismissal of a public employee. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lacy, second. Any questions? Seeing none, Madam Treasurer, may we have a vote?
President Goodwin,
Yes.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yeah.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Yes.
Mr. Walker, Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Wick, Ms. Wick, Ms. Wick,
Ms. Sheehan? Yes. Can I see you real quick?
Mr. Scott, 8 yeses.
I'm gonna come down there.
Say that again.